Hey everyone, and welcome back to Viral and Vital. I'm Blaze.
And I'm Electra.
And we are ready to take a deep dive into another amazing album.
That's right. Today we're going to be exploring a true classic of heavy metal.
We are talking about Judas Priest's British Steel.
Released in 1980.
This was their 6th studio album.
And it really solidified their place
as Metal Titans.
Yeah, it's a game changer.
Before we get too far into it, for those of you who haven't heard this album, what would you say is like the one thing that comes to mind?
Oh, man. Well, it's power for sure.
Oh, yes.
But also a really interesting blend.
Yeah.
That classic heavy metal sound.
Yeah.
But with a more commercially accessible edge.
Yeah.
A British Steel wasn't just for the metalheads,
Yeah.
It really kind of broke through to a wider audience.
Totally. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so special.
Absolutely.
But let's set the stage a little bit before we jump into,
Sure.
too many of the tracks.
Yeah.
This was their first album with Dave Holland on drums.
Right, replacing Les Binks.
Exactly. So that was a big shift
Definitely
for the band.
Yeah.
And I
think
think
the whole new heartbeat
it really is
to the band.
Speaking of kind of big shifts.
Yeah.
And the influence of this album.
Yeah.
Max Cavalera from Sepultura has said that this is the essential thrash metal album.
Really? Wow.
It's crazy, right?
It's amazing.
So that gives you an idea of just how influential this record was.
Yeah. I mean, you can definitely hear echoes of British Steel in those early Sepultura tracks.
Yes, for sure.
It's that raw energy, the driving riffs.
Absolutely.
It really did provide a template, I think, for a lot of bands who wanted to push the boundaries of metal.
Totally. And it makes me wonder, like, did that also influence, Metallica?
Oh, absolutely.
Like all of that kind of generation of thrash that came up?
Yeah, for sure. You can't talk about the evolution of thrash metal.
Right.
Without acknowledging the impact of this album.
It's in the DNA.
It's in the DNA.
So we've got a new drummer, a sound that's both heavy and catchy, an album that becomes a blueprint for an entire subgenre of metal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. What else do you think was going on with Judas Priest at the time that it kind of shaped this album?
Well, it was the dawn of a new decade.
Yeah.
Like, the 80s were about to, roar to life.
Totally.
And there was this, sense of change in the air,
Yeah.
You can almost feel that energy.
For sure.
Reflected in British Steel.
Yeah, like they were channeling the spirit of the times.
Exactly.
That feeling of rebellion.
Yeah, and pushing boundaries.
Yeah, but they were also smart about it.
Right.
They were able to harness that energy and make it...
accessible.
Right.
Yeah.
Think about Breaking the Law.
Yeah, such a great example.
Such a great example of that. Like it's got that driving riff.
Yeah, that energy.
It's got that infectious energy.
Yeah.
But it's also a song that anyone can connect with.
It's right.
I think that's why British Steel resonated with so many people.
Totally.
It had that raw power, but it also had those catchy books.
For sure.
That just got stuck in your head.
Yeah, totally.
But what's really interesting?
What's that?
Is, they recorded this album.
Yeah.
At Hittenhurst Park.
Yeah, do you know what that is?
No, I have no idea. Tell me.
It was Ringo Starr's house.
What?
Yeah.
Ringo Starr from the Beatles.
From the Beatles, yeah.
That's amazing.
Isn't that wild?
That's crazy.
And they didn't even use the on-site studio.
Really?
They preferred recording in the house itself.
Wow.
Yeah, so imagine laying down these heavy metal tracks.
I know.
Within the same walls.
It's incredible.
Of once housed the Beatles.
The history in that place.
I know, it's amazing.
Must be unbelievable.
It is, right?
Well.
So speaking of history, let's dive into some of those legendary tracks from British Steel.
All right.
When we come back.
Sounds good.
For part 2 of our deep dive.
We'll be right back.
All right, so we're back.
Back in the studio, ready to talk British Steel.
Ready to crank it up.
Yeah. It's one thing to record in Ringo Starr's house, but what really makes this album legendary is the music.
Absolutely.
And when you look at the track list, you can tell they had a vision for this record.
Totally. I mean, they streamlined their approach.
Yeah.
Focused on these hard-hitting riffs and those catchy hooks.
Yeah.
Really created this incredible blend of power and accessibility.
Yeah, and that's something that really strikes me about this album.
What's that?
Like, in heavy.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Uh-huh.
But it's also so incredibly catchy.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, Breaking the Law.
Such a great example.
That song is an anthem.
It's an anthem.
And it's just pure adrenaline for like 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, every element serves a purpose.
Totally.
That driving rhythm.
Yeah.
The iconic riff.
Gang vocals.
The game vocals. Everything just comes together.
It's perfect.
It's so powerful.
It's so good.
And memorable.
And speaking of Breaking the Law.
Yeah.
Did you know that Glenn Tipton actually got the inspiration for that song when he saw someone breaking into his car?
No
Yeah,
way.
he was at his home studio.
Wow.
And he looked outside, and someone was breaking into his car.
Oh, man.
And it just sparked that idea.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy how real-life experiences can fuel creativity. Like
Totally.
that, you know,
Yeah.
he took that frustration
Yeah.
and turned it into this anthem.
Exactly.
It speaks to rebellion and defiance.
It's true.
And it's funny how inspiration can come from anywhere.
Anywhere.
You know.
Yeah.
But you know what's cool about British Steel?
What?
It's not just about anger and rebellion.
Right.
There's actually a lot of depth
Yeah.
to the songwriting.
Totally.
You've got songs like You Don't Have to Be Old to Be Wise,
Yeah. Great song.
which really challenges authority
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
encourages independent thinking.
It's about empowerment.
Yeah,
Even in the face of those who try to hold you back.
exactly. And then you have
Yeah.
the other side of the coin,
Uh-huh.
which is Living After Midnight,
Yes.
which is just pure fun.
just pure fun.
Like letting loose,
Yeah.
embracing the night.
Living life to the fullest.
It's such a classic party anthem.
Oh, it
It's
is.
so good.
And it's interesting how they managed to balance those different moods and themes.
I know, it's really cool.
Because in the album,
Yeah, you've got the anthems, the
Yay.
rebellious tracks, but then you've also got those moments of introspection
yeah,
and
that's
reflection.
what makes it so well-rounded. It's
Yes.
not one-dimensional. It's got the full spectrum of human emotion
Yeah,
wrapped up in this heavy metal package.
and we can't forget about Metal Gods.
Oh, yes.
I mean,
The ultimate.
that is more than just a song.
It's a statement.
It's a statement.
Yeah.
It is a
It's
declaration.
a declaration of heavy metal supremacy.
Yes, and what's fascinating about that song
What?
is that it touches on the dangers of technology,
That's right.
even back in 1980,
Yeah.
which is crazy to think about.
It's like they were predicting the future.
I know.
In a way.
It's crazy how
Yeah.
they saw that.
Yeah, that progress can have a dark side.
Yeah.
Even way back then.
And it makes the message of that song
Uh-huh.
even more relevant today
So relevant.
in our tech-driven world.
It really is a testament
Yeah.
to their songwriting ability to
Totally.
write these songs that transcend time.
Exactly. British Steel isn't just a product of its era.
Yeah.
It continues to resonate with listeners today.
It does.
And speaking of that,
Yeah.
like, it's one thing to resonate with listeners,
Yeah.
but this album became a blueprint.
It did. It totally influenced
Yes,
thrash metal.
For sure.
But it had this ripple effect across the entire heavy metal landscape.
Absolutely. Bands were taking note
Yeah.
of that raw power,
Mm-hmm.
that combination of heavy riffs.
Yeah. Yeah. Catchy melodies. And they were incorporating it into their own music.
It's like they created a formula for success.
Yeah, it wasn't just about the formula, though.
Right.
It was about the attitude,
Yeah.
the energy, the conviction,
The conviction.
that Judas Priest brought
They brought it.
to their music,
Yeah.
They weren't afraid to be bold, to push boundaries,
Yeah.
and to create something truly unique.
And that's what makes British Steel
Yeah.
so special.
So special.
It broke the mold. It
Yeah.
inspired a generation of musicians.
And it continues to hold a place,
Yeah.
among the greatest heavy metal albums of all time.
It's a timeless classic.
It is.
And when you think about the context of the time,
Yeah,
it's even more remarkable.
totally.
Heavy metal was still finding its footing,
Yeah.
and here comes Judas Priest,
Mm.
just blowing everything out of the water.
Exactly. They were
Yeah,
pioneers.
They were pioneers.
They took those raw elements
Yeah.
of heavy metal, refined them,
Yeah.
and created something that was both accessible and groundbreaking.
I love that word groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Because it really is.
It's true.
All
I
right,
think-
so we're going to wrap up this deep dive into British Steel.
Yeah.
But before we do,
Yeah.
we got one more part
One more part to this heavy metal saga.
to this saga.
Get ready for some final thoughts and a parting shot of pure metal wisdom.
All right, so we are back for one last headbanging session.
That's right. We're wrapping up our British Steel deep dive.
And, I'm still thinking about how much this album influenced other bands.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It is.
The impact it had on heavy metal and music in general.
It really is. And, one of the things that I always love to do is look at how the individual songs
Oh, yeah.
to the bigger picture.
Totally.
Like what makes a track like Metal Gods stand out?
Yeah.
Not just musically, but thematically.
Well, Metal Gods is really interesting because on one hand, it's this anthem,
Yeah.
declaring heavy metal power.
Yes.
But then it's got this underlying warning about technology.
Right. It's almost like they were predicting the future a little bit.
Yeah, you know how we become so reliant on machines?
Yeah, totally.
That's kind of crazy.
I know. And I love how they framed that message, too.
Yeah.
It's not preachy or anything.
Right, it's just woven into this heavy metal banger.
It's a cautionary tale disguised as a headbanging track.
Exactly.
It's so cool. And it makes you think
It does.
British Steel isn't all serious contemplation.
Oh, no.
There's also just pure, unadulterated joy. Like
Yes.
Living After Midnight.
Oh, such a great song.
It's such a good song.
It's just a celebration of freedom.
Yeah,
Living life on your own terms.
totally. And I read somewhere that Bob Halford was talking about how it's also about finding your place in the world.
Oh, wow. I love that. That's a great perspective.
It's like Living After Midnight is an anthem for anyone who's ever felt like an outsider,
Right.
like they don't quite fit in,
Exactly.
which is, I think, a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what makes this album so powerful and enduring.
It's true.
It speaks to those universal desires
Yeah.
for freedom, individuality, and self-expression.
And it's all wrapped up
It's all in
in
there.
this heavy metal package.
I think sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the headbanging and the riffs,
Oh, yeah.
but when you really listen to the lyrics,
Yeah.
there's so much depth to this album.
Totally. They aren't just writing songs. They were crafting stories,
Yes.
exploring themes.
And making statements.
Yeah, that continue to resonate with listeners today.
And that's what sets apart, the truly great albums from the rest.
Right. They transcend eras.
They do.
And speak to something deeper within us.
Like British Steel tapped into the collective consciousness of a generation.
Yeah, and it continues to inspire,
Yes.
new generations
Absolutely.
of music lovers.
So with that, our British Steel deep dive comes to an end.
It does.
Sad but true.
But the music, the legacy, the impact, it lives on forever.
It does. And we hope you enjoyed this journey through heavy metal history.
Yeah, it's been a blast revisiting this iconic album.
And we would love to hear your thoughts.
Yes.
What are your favorite British Steel moments?
Yeah.
What insights did you get from our deep dive?
Drop them in the comments.
Let us know.
Keep those horns held high and never stop rocking.
Until next time, stay metal.